My name is Shardel Santos. I'm originally from the Philippines. So I'm about 39 years old, turning 40 this year. I live alone in Vienna, no family at all. I have a 6-year-old son and recently divorced. Yeah, and it's the very reason why I landed here in Vienna because of marriage. I am a licensed registered nurse here right now in Vienna. But before coming here, I used to teach in a university back in the Philippines. So literature was my first degree. And then I studied also nursing science. It's called Pflegewissenschaft here. But then again, when I landed here in Vienna, it's not possible yet to work in that kind of field because the bachelor studium didn't exist yet. So there was no equivalent curriculum. So the decision of the government was that I can study for a year and work as a Flege assistant. So I did that for a good 2 years. I worked in Akaha at the cardiology and then pulmonology department. And then eventually I studied proper nursing, which is called Bachelor of Science in Health Studies here. So actually, that would be my fourth degree because in the Philippines, I had a degree in literature and I took a master's as well on that field. And then I studied nursing. That was the third degree. And in the fourth degree will be the health studies degree here in Vienna. What still connects me to the Philippines? Of course, my family. All my relatives and family members are in the Philippines. I have three siblings, an older sister, an older brother, and a younger brother. And my mom is still in the Philippines. My dad passed away when I was 3 years old. So this is the connection that I have now. I'm alone with my son here in Vienna. I try to fly to the Philippines every 2 years, but the situation changed at the moment because of the financial situation that I'm in and because of the pandemic crisis. In total, I think I speak four languages. So my mother tongue would be Tagalog. That's the Filipino language. Second would be English. Third would be German. And at one point, I learned Indonesian. So this is basically the four languages that I can speak, and I'm basically bilingual in a sense that English is almost my mother tongue. So aside from my language, like my son is raised in a way that I only speak to him in English, and the father speaks to him in German. Oh, my son is now 6 years old, and he was born and raised here in Vienna. So right now, I have a shared custody with the father of my son, which means that I get to have him half the time. Like every other week, he's going to be with me, and the other week, he will be with his dad. Yeah, it was quite difficult from the moment that he was conceived until now because the relationship was coming to an end when he was conceived. And so we tried all our best to salvage the marriage. We went to pair therapy, but it wasn't salvageable at all because there was a third party involved. And so my ex husband chose to continue the affair and have a proper relationship with this other woman. And I just let go. And it took me about 5 years to actually accept the situation. And the divorce was just finalized on the fifth year of my son when my son turned 5. That was the time that the divorce was finalized and the time that actually I had to move on and accept the fact that I'm going to be raising my son alone. My son and I has a really close relationship because I breastfeed my son until he was 2 years old. And it was very difficult for me to let go when I had to go to work back in Akaha full time. And my son was just 15 months old, but I don't have family members, and I had to put him in the system and be part of the kindergarten so I could work full time and support him. and continue with the life. I'm not sure actually if it can be called life because it was just him and work, and nothing else. So I work as a private tutor, then I work as an assistant editor to a local magazine. Then after that, I was offered a teaching position in the university where I graduated, which is Ateneo de Manila University. And there I was a lecturer for about 2 years, teaching literary criticism and Filipino literature. And in the middle of that, I was offered a scholarship from Toyota Foundation, and I had a teaching position and a scholarship in Indonesia. And then after that, I came back to the Philippines and I started studying nursing, and which was a hype that time because the US needed a lot of nurses, and it was a fad, a hype at that time that a lot of Filipinos who already had degrees would study again another degree, and that would be nursing because it's our ticket. It's the fastest way for us to penetrate the US and build a life there. So at that time, after my masteral studies and the nursing thing, I decided, okay, I'm gonna go do this nursing and I'm gonna go abroad to support the family. But unfortunately, when I finished nursing, there was a retrogression. It means that from the time that I apply, it would take at least 5 years for me to get the visa and actually work in the US. So while I was waiting for that visa to work as a nurse, as a registered in the US, I worked as a cabin crew first for Qatar Airways. And this was really good paying job. I was able to help the family a lot, my siblings, like, sending money for them to build up a small business on their own, like my older sister. And then my younger brother was able to finish university through the money that I earned. And from this work, I saved a lot of money as well. Like in 3 years, because I was a very frugal person, I was able to save around 100,000 euros. And that was also the time that I stopped flying because my ex husband gave me an ultimatum that if I don't follow him in Vienna and if I don't marry him, that everything will be over. And it was a 4 year long distance relationship. So that's the main reason actually why I ended up here in Vienna. And so when I came here in Vienna, there were a lot of odd jobs. Of course, German language proficiency is a requirement. So I ended up working in a remittance company for Filipinos sending money back home in the Philippines because there I would only need English, a bit of German, and of course my mother tongue. And that was the first job that I held here. And for a moment, I worked in KFC as a cashier. Yes, with my 4 degrees, I worked in KFC as a cashier. Yeah, because it was the only field here where people coming from my country can easily penetrate in this kind of industries. There are a lot of like nurses coming here or lawyers, even and engineers, and they end up either working in the kitchen or working in restaurants, like as a cashier. It wasn't enough actually to survive. In the Philippines, when you're teaching, it's about 400 euros a month. And when I was teaching at that time, it's not even enough to pay rent. And when I photocopy materials to my students and I don't get refunded, that's already a big chunk of my salary. It's not actually easy to survive when you're in the academic field in the Philippines. It will take time until you have your proper titles and you can publish and you become famous and you get well paid. I grew up in a very poor family. My siblings and I were orphaned when I was about 4 years old. My father was a captain of a cargo ship and it sank sometime in 1986. I mean, the vessel wasn't found and the bodies wasn't found. Yeah, and so my mom was left with 4 kids to raise, and she was a housekeeper. She was an accountant, but never practiced it because she had to raise 4 kids. So it was a difficult life for just trying to make both ends meet by borrowing money from friends, from relatives. And that's how we got through. It's like the family support network, the relatives, the siblings of my mom helped a lot, especially my grandmother and grandfather took care of the four of us while my mom was doing different odd jobs. That would be different before the Mormon Corp thing happened and now. I mean, before I grew up in poverty, everything is always like about trying to make both ends meet. And my mom was in debt, and it was like survival mode all the time. And so money played a big role that I promised myself I will never have a credit card. I will never owe money. Because there were times when I was a kid that, the people that my mom owed money to would knock at our doors and look for my mom. Where is your mom? She owed me money. And I was forced to lie. My mother would tell me to hide her, to tell her she's someplace else. And to me, this was very morally problematic as a child. Like, my mom is teaching me to lie because there are people collecting the money she owed them. And this money was the money used to send us to private schools, basically. And I promised myself that I will never ever go to a situation that I would be in debt to someone or I will owe money. And so I'm 39 now and does not even own a credit card because I don't like the idea of credit, of owing money, because I grew up in an environment where life is precarious. When somebody got sick, when it is enrollment time, my mom has to find means to borrow money to be able to survive and to provide. When I was 21, I already earned my first 20,000 euros. It's about 1 million pesos. And in my country, it's not normal for a person like me at the age of 20 having that amount. It means that I work like mad to earn that kind of amount. I didn't have, I was not able to live like a teenager or live a university life, like people partying and doing stuff and just enjoying independence. No, I was either studying or working. I earn more than others considering my age. Plus, I spend way, way less beyond my means. Like, I can tell you that maybe my clothes at that time would be 10 years old, but it would be the same clothes that I'm going to be wearing. I mean, you will never find me buying something new unless it's like 70%, 80% discount with a red tag on it. I was very, very frugal and stingy to the point that it became like it's not normal anymore. And so I said, like, okay, when I'm a millionaire, my first million, I will be happy, but it's never enough. It's never enough. When I had my first million and I thought of like, how can I expand this amount? What should I do? And so I thought like, okay, I need to apply for scholarships abroad. And then from the money I received from the scholarship, I tried to live frugally in Indonesia and save this amount of money. And then I was very lucky at that time. I met somebody from the bank who knew me since college that I was depositing every single amount that I was earning from tutorials. And this is not big amount. And this person has seen me started my bank account from 50 euros growing to 20,000 euros. And this person offered like, okay, do you want us to manage your money for you? So I started dealing with stocks, options, FXTNs. So I had a bit of background with these things. And so I had an idea that, okay, there are means where you can put your money in a pot and it can get some interest or profit at one point. Yeah, so that's actually where the investment background came at that time. So money played a big role in me. I made it a point that I earned money and that the money worked for me at one point. It's my means of security. When I feel sad, when I feel so lonely and oppressed in Vienna or wherever I am, I just look into my bank account. It is my measure of success. The money in my account was my security blanket and my measure of success. But actually, this wasn't success because I deprived myself of social life. I deprived myself of having a good life, actually. I deprived myself of actually living. I thought like when I have this certain amount of money, I'm gonna try to live a life of luxury or a bit of luxury. But no, I can't. Even though I had like saved 300,000 euros before I lost this amount of money to this scam, I couldn't even spend 10 euros for myself. From 2011 to 2019, I had saved around 160,000 euros from scratch. So that's about actually that's a span of 8 years that I earned or saved this 160,000 euros. And I thought like it's just normal. It's Europe. I mean, you can save this amount until I realized like when I lost my money that a lot of people are questioning, how can you have this amount of money? What did you do? How were you able to save it? And so that's when I recognized that, okay, this is actually not normal. My relationship with money was not actually normal. Okay, from the age of 16 until I was 38 before the Borman Corp thing happened. In total, it was about 300,000 euros. I thought like when I first came here, I thought like, okay, I'm gonna buy a flat. But every time I reached that amount, the goal that I needed for a flat, the prices rose and I couldn't catch up. It was never enough. And so this was actually the reason why I dealt with Borman Corp, because there was a person, a Filipino, who was selling their house for 330,000 euros. And I said like, oh my gosh, it's just 30,000 euros more and I'll be able to acquire this property. And it's a family house. It's relatively new. And it was being sold to me personally by this person. So I realized that what I'm missing is just 30,000 euros. And I thought, that, okay, what's the quickest possibility for me to earn this amount that I can finally put an offer on that property? Okay, it was like, I remember I was in the bathroom at that time, in the bathtub, miserable, with a pillow actually in the bathtub, searching through my phone. I was in a burnout situation. I was heartbroken at the same time. The decision on my divorce finally came down. My my ex husband at that time, was giving me a hard time, trying not to pay the alimony of my son. And there was a lot of pressure going on. And I just realized, like, especially in school, there was so much pressure. I was studying full time and I was doing practicum and at the same time raising my boy alone. I was on a brink of a burnout and I finally reached a burnout. And I was there. I found myself in a dark room, in a bathtub, scrolling Facebook for the first time again after not scrolling it for 5 years because I was so ashamed of my situation. You could never find me in the social network scene. I was so ashamed that my marriage failed and I'm a single mother. And I was so ashamed of my situation and I really punished myself from that. And suddenly on this day, I found myself activating my account and scrolling through the stories of my batchmates, of my family, and all. And I came through one commercial that I accidentally clicked, and it was about how to grow your money. It's like an autopilot, like somebody will be managing your money for you. And unfortunately, this advertisement was the mother of all scams, actually. And when I clicked it, all my information somehow was sent to that link, and people started calling me internationally, claiming that they're from the UK. And they were bugging me like, oh my gosh, they really very insistent in calling me all throughout the day and trying to convince me to try their product. They have access to my computer, they have access to everything. Somehow they found out that I'm a single mother, and somehow they sent an agent, an account manager who's supposed to be assigned to me, and she mimicked all my situation. She was a single mother, she was a battered wife, she was struggling in the court as well for the custody of the kids, and everything is like a mimicry of whatever I am. She was also that person. And suddenly I felt like finally there was a person who understands my situation in the same situation as I am. So I'm not alone anymore. Suddenly I felt the need to trust this person because she knows best because we're in the same exact situation. And I didn't know that they got all this information because they had access to my phone, to my computer, to the pictures in there, to the journals I have in there, to everything I have in my computer. I never had friends. I never had a time to meet friends because for me, meeting friends means like I had to pay for coffee and I could just do part-time jobs instead of like wasting my time meeting people. And when I meet people, I have to spend for restaurant food. I have to spend for coffee. I was very, very stingy. I was so frugal that I tried to eliminate everything that would cost me expenses. I was even in that bathroom tub because that was the only spot in the flat where I could get internet connection for free from my neighbor. I have 300,000 in my account, but would not even dare to pay 15 euros for internet. And it just took like one last blow for me to finally reach that burnout situation that I totally had a lapse of judgment. I mean, these people use emotional appeal, and at that time, this is exactly what I need. I needed emotional connection. I needed somebody to give me a tap on the back and give me support. And at the same time, I was frustrated. I want to leave that very small flat that we're renting, and I had a very problematic landlord at that time. So it's like multiple crises going on together. And it seemed like at that time, seemingly, this sort of people who contacted me that I needed the most. Somebody who would manage my money for me, somebody who could give me quick profits that I could finally move to a proper flat. Because I've been like in the last 5 years that I was raising my son, every almost year, 2 years, I had to move to a different flat. And to me, this is a crisis, moving from one flat to another. The name of the company was Borman Corp. And actually, I didn't know that they were operating under a different name as well, which is also banned here in Austria. 250 euros at first. And then they showed me like, okay, this 250 euros can earn more. And then somehow they got access to my computer. I told you they installed something, a spyware or malware there, because they knew exactly how much I have. They knew that I have several hundred thousands in my account somehow because they really pushed me to invest and they know the money that I have. Because all throughout the process, they're really trying to drain me until the last cent that I invested. And in 6 months, if we put this money, this amount of money, it can double in 6 months and you can buy the flat that you want. And she even said to me, like, oh, I did the research about the market there in Vienna, that this is the amount you need to buy the dream flat that you want, something like that. So it sounded like legitimate to me. Or maybe I was hearing what I wanted to hear and I was convincing myself. Of course, a part of me maybe is skeptic, but I did not trust that thing because to me, these are people who's gonna save me. They're like the messiahs who just came there and will be the solution to all my problems. They're showing me that okay, this is the amount like, oh my gosh, it's really growing and it can really have a profit that big to the point that I throw in three sets of 50,000 euros. That's a total of 150,000 euros. Because she was following up every day. She was calling me maybe at least 8 times a day to follow up, to update me on everything. And I felt like, oh my God, where can I find such a person who would manage my account and was so up to date with everything and updating me with all the plans that she had. She had it all laid out for me. It all started in June instead of July. They said like in December you're gonna be one of our VIPs and we're gonna have a party here in the UK and you're gonna be part of it and we're gonna all see each other because I've never seen them. They're all about voice and I was so naive and I was so unwitty that I never even bothered to ask for a picture of them or anything because when I call them on the phone they say like, oh, it's not possible right now to do a camera call and stuff like that. It was actually my first time to use this WhatsApp thing, and I'm not familiar with it. I isolated myself from technology, from friends, and so everything like happened like this. Have I called a friend at that time, or just updated myself with the things going around the world? I probably would have saved myself from this scam. There were points in time that it became 300,000, the 150,000 euros. Oh my God, this is way, way beyond already what I needed. And so at that time, I thought like, okay, I'm gonna pull out the money. But when I informed my account manager at that time, she said like, no, but you know what? There's another product. If you reach 500,000, we can invest into this product for VIPs, and you can definitely be a millionaire. And so my goal was to reach that amount to invest more. So the plan was for me to fly back home and get the rest of my savings in the Philippines. And so then I realized like, okay, but I shoved all my money, all my euros in there. And so I even asked them like, so how do I do it? How do I fly back to the Philippines and get my money? They even allowed me to do a 5,000 euro withdrawal for me to buy the tickets and to get the rest of my money back in the Philippines. I was confiding to a friend. I was so proud that look at my investment at the moment. It doubled, and I was really dreaming of what to do with the money and stuff. And I was even encouraging that friend of mine to invest. And so we googled it together, and I just suddenly realized that oh my gosh, what he was able to pull out on his browser was different from my devices. And there it mentioned a lot about scam. I think I was in denial because all my money is in there. I couldn't accept it. I couldn't accept it that it was a scam, and a part of me still wants to believe that maybe these people are just unhappy. They didn't get the profits that they want to get, and they're just trying to ruin this company of some sort. I was in denial. I was convincing myself that my money is still safe with them and it's going to grow. I flew to the Philippines, and when I reached my bank, my brother actually drove me there, and I was asking them like, "Oh, I tried to bank wire this money from the Philippines directly to this account that they gave me in Bulgaria, and the bank in the Philippines did not authorize it. That I had to fly home, actually, to fly home." And then my brother, on the way driving me to the bank, said, like, are you sure about this? Have you not heard there's so many scams existing and stuff like that? And I said, like, no, this is legitimate. I mean, they have a number in the UK, they have an address, and yeah, they really got me. I mean, there's a full trust in there that somehow, like, even though I can see already that there are signs of scam, that I continue to deny it. I was still thinking, like, oh, with the platform that they have, it can't be a scam. They have a platform and I can monitor what's going on with my money. And they keep on updating me and they keep on calling me and stuff. And there's an actual bank account where I can transfer the money. So in my head, it was a legitimate thing. And then when we came to the bank account manager, the bank manager actually tried to talk sense into me that you might, want to hold on to your money. And is there anything we can offer you that you keep your money here and stuff? And so that time was actually a blessing in disguise because it made me, think about more like, should I really show all my money in there or not? And so I kept the money in the same bank. We got home, my brother talked sense to me, and I tried to call and confront Borman Corp, and that's all where the horror happened. So I called the account manager assigned to me with Borman Corp, and I sort of like confronted her, like, are you a scam or not? And I told them that I did not transfer the money, and they were so upset with me. Suddenly, from a very sweet account manager, she became a different person. She was like yelling at me and cursing me and calling me crazy for not doing the bank transaction. She was having a British accent and suddenly it shifted to a Nigerian accent of some sort, where she was very upset with me. And then when she lashed out on me, she was panicking and she said that, okay, let me talk to my secretary. On the background, she was very nervous. And actually, then I realized, like, oh my God, this could be a call center. She was telling somebody to act like the secretary to pacify me. And so then I realized that, oh my God, this is really a scam. She dropped the phone on me and I could not reach her anymore. And this was the reason because a withdrawal can never be authorized without a contact with the account manager. So she was out of the picture already. The next time I called her, the secretary called me and said she was fired. They made me even feel guilty. They said that she was fired because I did not do the transaction. I did not transfer the rest of my money. That I'm not dealing with her. And this meant that there's nobody to authorize the withdrawal of my account, of my money. And the moment they realized it, that I placed a withdrawal, it just flashed before my very eyes. I just saw the stocks, the accounts where my money was invested plunging before my very eyes. I was taking screenshots of it actually in a span of 30 minutes. 300 plus thousand went to as low as 50,000. And they told me before, never do anything with your account. We're going to do the opening and the closing of the account, the buying and the selling. And so I didn't really know how to manipulate the account. I don't even know how to close it myself because he told me don't do this thing. So I was in shock because it was just 50,000. It's like, okay, this is the only amount that I can salvage and how can I withdraw it further? So I filed for a couple of like withdrawal requests, which was constantly denied. And this other person, a man, they claimed to be higher than the account manager, kept on calling me and kept on giving me like solutions like, you know what, we can grow your money again to something where you started before if you give us an authorization to move your account again. Because I changed my password and everything, and they could not access the 50,000 euros either. And I was so scared that they're gonna invest it to something that I'm not aware of, and totally so it will appear in the platform that is totally wiped out. So I went online and typed in Borman Corp scam, and if there's somebody who can represent me, a lawyer or a firm. And so somebody contacted me claiming that they can actually claim back my money from Borman Corp. And actually, it turns out that this group is actually Borman Corp themselves and under a different name, and just wanting to find out what kind of issue do I have, what were my complaints, and what am I going to do about it. So I think this is their way of like scamming people more, like pretending to be helping them, but actually scamming them more because they're asking for 2,000 euros fee for them to process my claim. I mean, apparently, while I was in the airport in the Philippines, I saw some national police agents called the NPI roaming around the area. So I was able to like quickly ask for advice. Like, I was a victim of this scam thing, and what can I do? Shall I file it here in the Philippines or wait until I reach Austria? And so they just told me like if it happened in the Philippines, then they could have helped me and they could have contacted the FBI in the US cracking down on these scams. But unfortunately, it all happened in Austria, so it's not in their jurisdiction to be able to help me. This is a cybercrime thing. In the Philippines, we do have cybercrime laws, but it covers events that or crimes that happened within the Philippines. When I came back here, immediately upon arrival from the airport, I went straight to the police, the LPD, in the second district when I was living at that time, and they just told me like, forget about your money. You will never get it back. It's gonna be transferred from one account to another until it's not gonna be traceable anymore. I think that was the start, and I started feeling some post-traumatic stress syndrome. I can't sleep anymore. I couldn't eat. I was like hopeless. And wherever I go to, I went to the police. Police can't help me. I went to the bank. The bank can't help me. Nobody can help me because there's no clear cyber law crime that can protect me. I was very, very frustrating. I felt so alone. And psychologically, I was not really stable at that moment. I was having anxiety attacks. I was having panic attacks, sleepless nights. I still managed to finish school. I went to school and do the normal things, get the exams. I even have days that I have my teachers encouraging me to take the test because I would go blank and I would just be on my panic mode and would just be blank for the first 15-30 minutes of the exam. But I'm just lucky that, my teachers were nursing professionals and they see me perform before. And so they try their best to make me like just get by this semester. But it was really, really tough. It really affected my life. There was even a point that I thought like I should be ending my life because I felt so ashamed. I felt so stupid that how can I be scammed? I mean, with all my degrees and with all my experience, how can I be fooled? And knowing that I held onto this money for years and suddenly just let go of it like that, there was a lot of guilt in there. There was a lot of self deprecation involved. And I was blaming myself a lot. I couldn't forgive myself. I couldn't forgive myself to the point that I even wrote a suicidal note already, writing down all the money left that I could leave to my son because I couldn't manage it myself. I thought like I cannot be a good guardian to my son if I cannot even manage. Changed my life a lot because for a good 6 months to a year, I had PTSD. I wasn't myself anymore. I wasn't the mother, the same loving, attentive, healthy mother I was to my child. I was rank one in school before everything happened, and I slipped down the rankings. It really affected my life. I felt like I cannot make even simple decisions. I felt so poor because I was stripped out of the security blanket that I have, which was my savings. And I felt so alone. But I told myself like, okay, I cannot be feeling like a victim all the time. I have to do something with the situation and empower myself somehow. But everybody around me actually shot me down, just told me the lawyer that I consulted even told me like, yeah, forget about the money. Yeah. People who can actually help me do a film about it, documentary, told me like, yeah, forget about it. It can be like an organized crime. It can run after you and you're risking your life. And even the police told me that, there's no way to retrieve your money unless you can give us a proper person to run after too. And these are just voices and probably not even the real names. So it's like I just sort of like lied low and tried to go back to normality, a certain sense of normality in my life. And that was a good 6 months that it was really miserable. It changed a lot after a while, like from something negative, it became something positive because now I think I have a healthier relationship with money. That money is there to be spent, to live life, and not just be there and accumulate it. It changed sort of my value system and how I view money now, and how I treat myself, and how I spend for me and my son. And before I would like go to like different supermarkets just to get the cheapest thing of everything. But now I know that okay, I'm working hard for the money that I earn, and these are the resources that should enable me to live a more comfortable life. And so I think for the first time I even like had a vacation in Austria, which I would never actually do. I mean, I would go to a vacation in the Philippines, but to do some formal things, but not really to enjoy life. So I have better valuation of what the importance of my money and in my life, that it is something that needs to be sustaining me in a way, but it cannot be something that I can use to be my security blanket because it doesn't give me any form of security anyhow.